Financial educator and director at FinSafe India, joins in now to tell us that between pension plans and systematic withdrawal plans of mutual funds, why does SWP score better? Hi, Mrin. Good afternoon. But before I get to you, I want to actually quickly run through a basic explanation of what pension funds and SWP is. So first, pension plans, as most people may know, are life insurance plans which are designed to meet post-retirement needs. They provide regular income as well as tax benefits depending on the type of policy that you have chosen. An SWP, or a systematic withdrawal plan, is linked to mutual funds, and this allows investors to withdraw from their mutual fund scheme at regular intervals. So these withdrawals they could be fixed or variable amounts, and also the periodicity of the withdrawal can be decided by the investor itself. So Mrin, now that we know what both of these are, what are the parameters on which one should judge? I mean, I don't want you to just say that SWP is better. I want people to be convinced of, before they take their decision. So first, what are the parameters on which an investor must judge their retirement plan?
Well, I think first and foremost, you need to figure out how you're going to get this monthly income. Now, what we're seeing is that a lot of people just blindly go in for pension funds because they feel that, okay, I'm going to get this fixed amount every month, and hence my needs will be taken care of. But some of the things that people tend to forget is that, let's say you're signing up for a pension plan where, you're investing now for the next 20 years, and after 20 years, you're going to start getting the pension. How does inflation tie in, right? Because what is 100 rupees today is not going to be 100 rupees 20 years down the line. And, this we have seen it in the past also, where people have bought all sorts of investment-linked policies for very low amounts, thinking that this is going to be a big amount in the future. But the first thing that you need to keep in mind is that when you are planning for this regular return in retirement, it's not only about getting like this fixed amount that you know right away. It is more about looking at, is that amount on an inflation adjusted basis actually going to be worthwhile getting or not, right? So I think, that is the first thing that you really need to keep in mind. Also, the amounts that you're getting, or the investments that you have, that you're building up over this longer period of time in order to get that pension or regular return during requirement, during the period when this amount is actually growing, is it actually giving you a good return at that point in time? Is it actually giving you an inflation-adjusted return at that point in time? So I think, these are two things that people tend to forget in pension plans, that one, during the time when they're accumulating, they don't see what are the returns. And two, when they're also getting that fixed return, they don't actually think about the fact that inflation-adjusted, this is not a great amount to get.
That's true, actually. So two things here. One, of course, is the ease that a pension plan would provide, right? Because somebody comes to you and says that here's a tailor-made plan. Just all you have to do is put in this little bit of amount. It's like buying a ready-made garment, right? A tailored outfit will always fit better, but it's just more cumbersome, right? And I suppose the other thing is also that when you look at pension plans, people are looking at absolute amounts. And when you look at mutual funds, they're looking at CAGR or annual returns. I guess it also, for investors would do well to measure both by the same yardstick. But anyway, so if one were to assume, Rin, that an SWP is better, and as popular as the systematic withdrawal plan may be already, there are still enough number of people who don't know how to go about it. So what is a good step-by-step way to set up an SWP? How do you start, and what's the process really?
All right. So with the SWP, so let us say we are comparing a pension plan, which is a deferred pension plan, with an SWP. So in a deferred pension plan, you've invested and then you start getting the pension after 20 years, right? Now, in the SWP also, you can do the same thing. So you can choose, let's say, a fund of your choice. Ideally, if you have a 20-year period, you would like to choose an equity fund, given that it's long-term in nature, but choose a fund as per your risk profile. I am presuming the choice the individual makes is in equity. So what you do is that for the first 17 years, you invest into equity. And then at the end of the 17th year, you basically move this into a short duration bond fund, and then set up a SWP from the 20th year. So what have you done by doing this is that, one, you've got good returns over 17 years, and there's no doubt that in 17 years, I'm sure equities will be able to give much better inflation-adjusted returns than what you can get in the regular pension plans. Secondly, you've moved it out more from a tax efficiency perspective into a short duration bond fund. And then you started the SWP after 3 years of being invested in a short duration fund. Again, this works out to be much more tax efficient, because if you don't have that 3-year period, then on the withdrawals, you're going to be essentially paying tax as per your tax slab. So this way, you have kind of ensured that you have a good growth in your corpus, and at the same time, you are tax efficient as well. Because remember, pension is completely taxable as per your tax slab.
And Mrin, so this is between, like a pension plan or an SWP. What about a solution-oriented fund? I mean, should somebody consider that at all, or does it work similar to an SWP?
Well, you can consider a solution-oriented fund. The thing with the solution-oriented fund is that there's a minimum lock-in of 5 years. So you could always do this in a solution-oriented fund. The advantage of doing this on your own is really the fact that, you can choose a fund of your choice, or you can set up a portfolio, let's say a retirement corpus portfolio of your choice, versus going in, for a specific category of fund. So if you're somebody who likes to take higher risk, then certainly doing it on your own is better, because the retirement-oriented funds are more conservative in nature as well.
Got it. Mrin, thanks very much for joining in and for explaining this concept, and also, for helping people understand how to actually compare two products which are not entirely like to like, but perhaps serve the same requirement. As always, Mrin, thanks for your time. A quick break. On the other side, we're going to talk about, or rather answer, some mutual fund queries that have come in. With us will be Vivek Bajaj, co-founder of StockEdge. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back. You're watching the MF Corner, and it's time now to answer some of the queries that have been coming in to us from our viewers. And to do just that, we have a new guest with us, Vivek Bajaj, the co-founder of StockEdge. Hi, Vivek. Good afternoon. And let's get to our first query right away. Ijaz T has written to us from Mumbai. So he says he's 33 and he has invested in multiple funds. So he has a couple of questions actually that he's looking to ask. One is he wants to assess his portfolio, and we're going to start flashing his portfolio for you. Second, he wants to know if it is good to reinvest the money in ELSS every 3 years. So basically, you keep churning the money as soon as the lock-in ends. And he also wants to know if it is safe to invest in MFs via MF utility. So good questions. Vivek, what would you recommend? Let's start with his portfolio.
Yep. So, I saw his portfolio, and, I'm very happy. I'm very glad to see his portfolio. Being a 33-year-old person, he has actually built a very nice portfolio for himself. There's a good mix of long-term funds. For example, Parag Parekh long-term fund is there. Access Blue Chip Fund is there. And then it...
Okay, I think we're going to try and re-establish that connection with Vivek. But basically what Vivek was trying to say was that, right now the contribution that Ejaz's portfolio has between, large and small caps to him seems fairly adequate. And in fact, he feels that there could be a higher allocation made towards equity schemes. Okay, Vivek, I was stealing your thunder, but go ahead.
Yeah, so as I said, that his portfolio is pretty much fine. But his question with respect to ELSS, that is actually very...
Okay, Vivek, what we'll do is we'll reconnect you on the phone. For now, I want to just talk a little bit about the second query that Ejaz has, which is, should money be reinvested in ELSS funds every 3 years? Well, my personal take on it, why not, really? Because a lot of the ELSS funds have also been doing really well. You get, you have the 3-year lock-in. You take it out at the end of it and, reinvest it. Why not? The other one was, whether or not you can make the investments via MF utility. Again, I would feel why not, because, it is a platform that gives you access to direct investing. So that's my take on both these questions, but we'll of course have Vivek join us in a bit. And I don't want to analyze the portfolio as such, because I'm going to leave that to Vivek to do. But we have some more queries that have come in. The next one is okay, this is again an a combination of funds. He wants to know what's better, and a lot of these are actually combination of funds. But okay, here's a query that I think I could take up. Ravneet Khurana writes to us from Kolkata. She wants to know on what basis she should choose between overnight and liquid funds for short-term purposes, and what will be the tax implication. So, Ravneet, if I can just plug in a recent video that I had done. So on the CNBC TV18's YouTube channel, you're going to find a video where all the debt schemes have been, explained very well, and the difference between overnight and liquid. But I think Vivek is back on the line with us, and we're going to have him answer this question later. But first, to Ejaz's query. Vivek, you were talking about Ejaz's portfolio.
Yes, so I'm sorry about that network issue.
Don't worry.
So I've seen his portfolio, and I think it is well positioned. He has a very good mix of the long-term equity portfolio like Parag Parekh and Access Blue Chip, and has a fairly good exposure in the mid-cap and small-cap, which I believe is a good time to have an exposure considering the coming 4 to 5 years of equity market growth in India. So I think its portfolio is perfectly fine. He need not worry about the recomposition of the portfolio.
Okay, the next he wants to know is if he can keep circulating the ELSS money every 3 years once the lock-in ends.
Well, ELSS money is something which you need to invest every year. If you are there to take advantage of the tax, which is typically the objective of people who are investing in ELSS. So whether after 3 years you want to reinvest or not, it totally depends upon your liquidity situation after 3 years. Because this is anyways a yearly phenomenon, and every year you are investing in ELSS. So, it totally depends upon your liquidity and whether you want money back for some capex or something, or you want to reinvest in a similar kind of a fund.
Okay, and the third query that he has is whether or not MF Utility is a good platform.
I think it's absolutely safe. MF Utility is an aggregated platform by the industry, which you can use to invest in any of the fund. You need not worry because ultimately money goes to the fund where you have invested and you will get account statement from that fund itself. So MF Utility is just the utility which has been provided by the industry.
Okay, the next query, and I was halfway through answering this, but Vivek, now let me give it to you, is the difference between overnight and liquid. Ravneet Khurana wants to know. So basically, and this is what somebody else had asked me as well, is that if somebody has a requirement for very short-term purposes, okay, like say a week or 10 days or even a month for that matter, how do they decide if they should opt for the overnight fund or for the liquid fund? And, what are the tax implications in each?
Well, as far as the duration of the investment is concerned, pretty much both the categories same. If you are parking your money for a period of 5 to 6 days, you can choose either overnight or liquid. There is no difference. The only difference is with respect to the papers where the fund house invests. Overnight is typically parked in call money market, which is essentially lending to other banks. There, the risk is very, very low. Whereas in liquid fund, still there is exposure to short-term papers of corporates where there could be risk. So it's not the question of the duration, it's the question of the risk. If you want zero risk, then overnight is the one you should look at. Obviously, your return will be lower in overnight vis-a-vis the liquid fund. The second point of this question is the taxation part. As far as I understand, there is no tax difference between these two. Pretty much the same kind of tax law will be applicable in both these categories.
Okay, so Ravneet, that's I hope that's the advice that you were looking for. So basically, the only difference is that one is a little more safer than the other, which is the overnight fund. Okay. Now, Durjay Bhattacharya has written to us on Twitter. He has two pharma funds on his radar, which is UTI and Nippon, and he wants to know which seems to be a better one in terms of long-term growth prospects. Okay, so Vivek, I can't help you with the rest of Durjay's portfolio. We don't have it, but assuming that he's got his asset allocation and he now wants a bit of a thematic or a sectoral play. Just between the two, you don't have to fit it into his portfolio, but just objectively looking at two funds, which would you say is better?
Well, I would suggest that Nippon would be my choice because the size of the fund is reasonably good. Their asset under management in that fund is approximately 3,650 crores. And their performance has been around 7.6% CAGR over the last 5 years. Not that UTI fund is not great, but given an option between these two, I would say that Nippon is the one which you can look at. And, if I have to recommend another fund in the similar category of pharma fund, then I would recommend you can look at DSP Healthcare Fund, purely because they have invested 10% of the fund in overseas equity, in overseas pharma companies. I strongly believe that as Indians, we should start investing also in some opportunities which are global in nature. So rather than investing directly in global equity, these mutual funds who have the slightest exposure in global equities would definitely add a lot to your diversification.
All right, Vivek, we'll leave it at that for now. Thanks very much for joining in and for advising our viewers. With that, we'll wind down on MF Corner. Do stay tuned in. The team of Closing Bell joins you next.